Ronnie.
Hello, hi.
Thank you so much for joining me on Making the Cut. We're of course in the Mini Electric. We're going to go for a really awesome drive. Are you ready?
Yes, thank you for inviting me.
All right, I'm very excited. Are you excited?
I'm excited.
All right, awesome.
Let's
Okay,
go.
let's go. So Ronnie, tell me a little bit about how you're driving sustainability at Lenovo, because we're here to talk about sustainability, and obviously you're doing a lot at Lenovo. So tell me a little bit about that.
Okay, as the General Manager of Lenovo Singapore, now it's my job to make sure that policies with regards to sustainability gets rolled out, by the team here. And then of course, the important thing is to make sure that we are also in sync with what the government is doing. All right, and I'm sure recently a lot of you would have realized that this is a big thing even for the government. All right, going green.
Yes, the green plan.
Sustainability Act, the green plan. And today what we want to do is to be sure that what we are contributing to Singapore is something significant, and it makes sense because as the number one brand in Singapore, we have to do it.
Yes, the number one brand. You have to set the example.
That's correct. That's correct.
So we're sitting in the Mini, and of course the Mini is part of the BMW Group, and the BMW Group has also committed to sustainability. And one of the things they are doing is that they are trying to halve CO2 emissions per car, per kilometer driven, as part of their mission to create sustainable mobility. Now, I know at Lenovo you've also just launched a service where you are helping companies to offset their computer CO2 emissions. Right? So what do you think companies can do to fight climate change?
So I think it's really a concern, all right, and I think companies need to start to realize that they have to take a more vested approach, all right, not just to contribute to the whole society, but their customers are also asking for it, right? So we're beginning to also hear from our customer to say, now tell us more about what you're doing to help, and we want to be part of it, which is why it leads to that service that you mentioned. And I think effectively what it means is today we are empowering the customer to say, hey, look, instead of playing a passive role, Lenovo, you do your part, I can do my part, by working with a so-called sustainable vendor, and I can also chalk up credit in the process.
In fact, customers are starting to look for brands that are prioritizing sustainability, isn't it?
That is correct. That is correct.
Amazing. Now, really, really good to hear about what you're doing. Now, as somebody who recycles, I try to recycle as much as I can at home, and I'm always looking in my recycling bin or bag, and I'm like, there's so much packaging, right? It's always about that packaging, right?
That's right.
So what are you doing at Lenovo to reduce wastage and packaging?
Well, I think there's two parts to it, right? So there's a product part, there's a packaging part. I think maybe let me just start off with the product, right? So we try to use recycled materials. Okay. Right. Pleased to share, since 2008, we have actually used about 6 million kilogram of recycled materials in our products. Okay. I think that's really a big statement, because today, being also the world's largest PC manufacturer, it is important that we take the lead in doing that.
The number one brand.
That's right, the number one brand. And I think the second part, when you talk about packaging, yes, packaging, now it's really a 50-50 thing, because it's like you can't do away with 2 liter, because your product will get damaged along the way.
Yes, of course. You still want to protect it, right?
Absolutely. So us having that innovation DNA, what's important is our engineers get to work and they figure out to say, hey, look, how can I get something to be smaller, lighter, but yet at the same time it's sturdy enough to transport the machines point to point for my customer. So we started to have new materials in our packaging, like for example we're using bamboo, sugarcane fiber.
Wow. Okay.
All right? Changing the materials itself kind of help us reduce the weight, and through that process, we actually reduce about 3,100 tons.
Wow.
Yep.
That's
so far,
very significant.
since we have started, right, of packaging. And well, I think it is nothing compared to what we need to do, but I think it's a little bit that we are chipping in.
Yeah, it's kind of step by step, isn't it?
That is correct. And what we are trying to also send across the message is that now if everybody starts to do their conscious part, it's going to work, right? Because no one company alone is going to be able to do it alone.
Absolutely, yes.
That's right. it's not something about just spending more to get sustainable, but in that process you realize that hey, you can also have significant cost savings. That
In the long run, that's the thing, right? You might have to sometimes spend a little bit more, but in the long run, you do get a lot of cost savings.
Yeah. I guess the important part is when you get started, right? Maybe certain things you're doing is not refined, certain materials you're using is not bought in bulk yet.
Yeah.
But as more and more people jump on the bandwagon, right? Which is why I think, personally for me, I think there's actually three parties involved, right? There's the government involved.
Yeah.
There's the companies involved. There's also the individual consumer involved, because we can't do it all alone by ourselves. We need government support. We need also our customers to say, hey, I acknowledge that this is of value. This is one of the point I'm considering, when making my purchasing decisions.
And you need kind of companies like yourself also to drive that decisions forward as well, right? To be a part of the ecosystem.
That is correct. Yeah.
Now, where do you see Lenovo placed in the future of sustainability?
I think first it starts off with that commitment. So maybe just to share a bit about the history,
yes,
right?
Please.
I think we started 2010 with a target to say, hey, by 2020 we want to reduce a certain 20% of the greenhouse gas emission. Well, actually we challenged ourselves to do more, and we reduced 40.
Wow.
Yeah. So in 2020, the chief came out and said, hey, look, 40 has been met, so it's no longer good to have 40. Let's go for 50.
Right. Yeah.
So the target has been set, and I think the approach we use is really using the science-based method. All right, we want to get really prescriptive. All right, so it's 50% reduction greenhouse scope 1, scope 2 gas by 2030.
Okay.
All right, and of course the bigger, loftier target is by 2050.
Yeah.
We want to be carbon neutral.
Oh, fantastic. Now, speaking of that, the BMW Group is also looking, right, at kind of reducing their carbon emissions across the entire supply chain, including their production process, right? So, how do you think companies can reduce their global footprint when it comes to sustainability?
Important thing is get started. All right. I always feel that the most important and difficult step is the first step, right? So once you take the first step forward and say, hey, I really want to do it, and these are the reasons why I want to do it. All right, whether is it for the community, for the wellness of our future, So once you have that resolve, then take stock of what is happening. All right, are there processes within your own setup that you can make it more sustainable? All right, and I think more importantly, you're not alone in this journey.
Yeah.
All right, talk to people. All right, there are vendors, a lot of vendors like myself, that are actually contributing to it in our own ways. Right.
Share knowledge.
That's correct. Because knowledge is really good, right? Because some of this will work for you, some of this will not. But the more you accumulate, the more confident you are. And I think through that process, every little bit counts. You start off small, give yourself a target, and then you can move on with that. So back to that part just now when you mentioned about the offset. We call it the CO2 offset program.
Okay.
So basically what you do is that when you buy IT products, there's actually a certain so-called carbon emission that is done.
Yes.
But companies working with us can choose to say, hey, I want to offset that. Either equal or more.
Right.
And then how we do that is actually we partner with a company that actually has so-called close links with United Nations. Right?
Oh, fantastic.
So they
Okay.
actually work on projects like windmill projects, afforestation projects.
Right.
So it's definitely something credible, something
Yeah.
that can be. It comes in a little certificate that says, hey, you have done so much for the environment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Wow. I mean, it's really nice to hear about all the things that you're doing. And something that you mentioned just now, right? Which is individuals playing a part. Because like you said, it takes the government, it takes like organizations, but it's also take individuals. So what is your advice for individuals, and how can we play our part towards a more sustainable future?
Because sustainability is not a message that you say, hey, I do it for 2 days and it'll be all good, right? It's probably something you have to start to tell yourself to say, now, if I want to contribute my part, then there are also changes I need to do to the way I am doing my things,
The way I'm living, the choices that I'm making.
That is correct. So today, choosing the products, choosing the vendors you work with, all right. I think the consumer or the companies that are buying stuff have a right to make their intention known. Say, hey, look, if you are really conscious about sustainability, let it be clear, and as you mentioned before, right, there's other parts of the countries that this is becoming a very big thing. Like for example, in Europe, today it is becoming a prerequisite, right? Today,
Yes.
Well, if you're not sustainable, then you have to really catch up before companies will even consider you.
And people want to work with companies that have good sustainability programs as
That is
well.
correct. That is correct. Yeah.
Well, Ronnie, thank you so much. You've given me so much to work with, so much information, and it's very heartening to know that such a big tech company like Lenovo is really leading the way sustainability.
I don't think we're doing it big way, but as I mentioned, right?
Every step counts.
Every step counts.
Yes, every little
has to
bit
play their
counts.
part.
Absolutely. Thank you,
That's right.
Ronnie.
Thank you.